We've got about 2 minutes, but we're going to go ahead and start to jump in. It looks like there are 34 of us. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really exciting presentation for you. Before we jump in, a few housekeeping notes. If you're not speaking, please be sure to mute. There will be opportunities for questions later on. Our wonderful Zoom master, Jennifer, she is going to help feed those questions to our wonderful presenter today, Dr. Janice. Dr. Janice. So before we dive in, I have the honor of introducing our speaker. Our speaker today is Dr. Janice Hooke Fortman, DTM. She has a doctorate in educational leadership and the designation of Distinguished Toastmaster. She's one of the founders of MJM Speakers, and she was recognized by the National Association of Professional Women as the 2013-2014 Professional Woman of the Year for leadership in public speaking. In addition to giving presentations, workshops, keynotes throughout the United States, Dr. Janice Hooke Fortman coaches clients on becoming authors and improving their public speaking skills. Today's session is overcoming the fear of public speaking through the use of emotional intelligence. This is a workshop. There will be time for Q&A at the end. And with that, I am so honored to turn it over to Dr. Janice Hooke Fortman. The floor is yours.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and esteemed guests. It is my honor and pleasure to come before you this morning, even though I'm following Patricia's trip. As I said earlier, I felt like throwing this speech out and doing something totally different. But we're going to go on in and let me share my PowerPoint. So just hold on one moment while I get this together.
Hey, I'll put out a copy.
Okay, hold on. Got to share my screen. And here is my PowerPoint. And share. All right, can everyone see that? Just shake your head up. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so what we're going to do is today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and overcoming the fear of public speaking. Now, did you know that emotional intelligence plays a huge role in becoming a successful public speaker? So I'm going to go through what emotional intelligence is very quickly. There are 5 tenets. The first is self-awareness. And self-awareness is the ability to know your own emotions, your strengths, your weaknesses, what drives you, and definitely the effect that your self-awareness has on others. Then there's self-regulation, and that's the capacity to manage your emotions and the ability to think before you act. The third one is social skills, and that is if you have a proficiency in managing your relationships. And your relationships, by that I mean your personal and your professional relationships. And finding the common ground so that you can build rapport with your personal friends and definitely your audience. Then there's empathy. And that's the ability to understand and appreciate the emotions, the needs and concerns of others, definitely your audience, and to use those to guide behavior. And the last one is motivation. And when I talk about motivation, I'm also talking about self-motivation. And that's a passion and persistence that guides and facilitates you in reaching your goals. So now you can be a public speaker You can have employees that have to do some public speaking, and you want your employees and you want yourself to go from being fearful to be confident. So let's look at some of the tenets as far as being self-aware. Now, if you have full self-awareness, you will be considered a high performer, meaning you have long-term goals and you know what they are. You don't sacrifice your long-term goals for a short-term gain. And you're able to objectively evaluate yourself and align your behavior with your values. Now, let's say that you really are not aware, you're really not self-aware, then you operate as a low performer under stress and urgency. You also can come across as defensive or even aggressive, and you're not always aware of the tone and the language that you need. And you need to be aware of how you're perceived as others. In other words, a self-aware person knows what he's good at, he or she is good at. You can acknowledge it to yourself. You know where you need improvement. And to put another way, you know what makes you tick. You have to be able to monitor your own behavior. And when you're speaking, know the impact and the effect that it has on others. And you have to always be able to, when you're speaking before an audience, sometimes you have to change the way that you are speaking. You have to make necessary adjustments during your speech. So now when you are self-aware, you are really focusing on how you are coming across. Without self-awareness, it's difficult to become a great speaker. So how do you become self-aware? I'm asking you a question. How do you feel right at this very moment? I can tell you how I feel. Even though I've been speaking for quite some time, I'm nervous. I am nervous. I was perspiring, had to turn on the ceiling fan, I was fanning, but at least I know how I feel right now at this very moment. So think about that when you are going on the stage. How are you feeling? Another question, how would you feel if your best friend befriends someone you dislike? Now you might wonder why that question is there, especially when we're talking about speaking. What happens when you look out at your audience and you see someone looking at you, frowning, arms folded? How do you feel? Think about this. In what condition or situations are you the happiest? Are you happy and more comfortable speaking in a small group? Are you more comfortable speaking in a large auditorium? Or even, are you more comfortable and happy speaking virtually? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? As Toastmasters and as public speakers, this is something we really need to know. Are we good at motivating people? Are we better at being an educational speaker, an inspirational speaker, a speaker that relies a lot on statistics? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? If there's one thing you could do for the rest of your life, what would that be? And why did you choose it? I think most of us want to be public speakers, successful public speakers. When I started out, I said to my Toastmasters group, I want to be a highly paid international speaker. I'm still on that journey. Now, self-awareness and public speaking, to sum it up, you understand your value, you understand your passions, You understand your aspirations, you understand how you react, and you understand what impact you make on others. So now the second one was self-regulation. Self-regulation means you need to be able to control your intentions, your moods, your emotions. As a speaker, right before we speak, we usually have that adrenaline rush. But you need to be able to control it. And usually after that speech, then you come down. Learn how to control this. So you have to learn to tolerate your own uncomfortable feelings. A good way is to pause between your feelings and your actions. A quick story. I used to give presentations to teachers, and I could be speaking maybe 5 minutes and hands would shoot up. They're gonna ask questions. And my feeling was to attack, say, well, can you wait until I finish? But I had to control that feeling before I acted. And so I would have to say, well, if you would kindly wait until I finish my presentation, I just might answer your questions. And practice staying calm under pressure, which Patricia Tripp did fabulously because she kept going in and going out and coming, going back and forth with the tech. And but she appeared calm and cool. Also, reinterpret the situation in order to change your emotional response to it. In other words, you can really be in front of an audience that really not interested. But think about the fact that you have something to give them. So reinterpret that. So practice viewing your challenges as opportunities. And I hope there's no one here that's an odd counter, because my club knows that my word is so. So don't count. I put that there because this is the way that you can feel when you are under pressure. I felt this the other day. I was doing a podcast and everything went out. And I thought, oh my God, I can't stop the podcast. What am I going to do? I had to control my feelings. I had to calm myself. So regulation and public speaking, the ability to adapt to change. You should have the ability to control negative impulses, be able to manage your emotions, the ability to control your nervousness and maintain perspective, and don't blow situations out of proportion. The next is social skills. How do you develop your social skills? Learn to listen to people. Listening is one of the major issues in communication. We don't listen. We listen to respond. Think about that. Be interested in other people's stories and remember them. Don't be too negative and don't complain a lot. Remember people's names. Practice good manners and definitely pay attention to your body language. Social skills is necessary in building your relationships with your audience. If you have passion and you deliver that passion, you're going to be successful. Also, you need to create a community, not only in your personal relationships, but in your professional relationships, and try and create the community with your audience. A good way to do that is before you speak, go out into your audience, talk to the different people, ask them, what it is that they expect from your presentation. Get to know them, smile. Well, before COVID, I would say shake hands, hug, but develop that community with your audience. Social skills and public speaking, to reiterate, you want to have the ability to induce desirable responses in your audience. You want to be able to catalyze the change because that's why you are there. And you want to bond with your audience. You also want to motivate action because you always want to have a call to action. And if you are a leader, you want to be able to build and lead your teams and have common ground and build rapport. The next one is empathy. To me, empathy is really, it comes from your heart. But often we have to challenge ourselves to have empathy. In order to gain empathy, get out of your usual environment. Get into another environment, another culture. Get feedback from them. Explore the heart, not just your head. Think about walking in another person's shoes. There's a saying that you never know how far a person has come to get to a certain point. Think about your fellow Toastmasters, the ones who might have speech impediments, the ones who may have physical impediments. And let's say they starting their Toastmasters journey and their first presentation is, in your mind, horrible. But you don't know how far that person has come just even to get in front of an audience. So think about walking in someone else's shoes and examine your biases, which we all have biases. We might not want to admit that we have them, but we do have biases. And a lot of times the biases is just because we've heard something, we saw something, but examine where do your biases really come from and try to change them. Cultivate your sense of curiosity. Be a lifelong learner and learn how to ask better questions. Understanding others and their emotional makeup and reactions becomes the key to a successful speaker. Developing an empathy when you're in front of your audience. Learn how to read your audience. Have you lost them? Are they sitting on the edge of their seats? Learn to read. Develop empathy with your audience. So if you combine this knowledge and present it in such a way, present your empathy to your audience, you will be able to connect with them. Also, when you develop empathy with your audience, you get that trust. You want your audience to trust you and what you are saying to them. Now I put this here because this is a way of developing empathy before COVID, of course, when you're shaking hands. There's two different cultures, two different races. You might have bias, but when you communicate, when you listen, you can develop empathy across cultures. We'll go back over empathy in public speaking. Developing cross-cultural sensitivity is extremely important, especially in the world today, because we all know This is a very diverse world. If you're working, I'm sure, in your company, your corporation, it's very diverse. So develop that cross-cultural sensitivity, treating people according to their emotional reactions. If someone reacts negatively towards you or angry towards you, that's where your empathy comes in. Rather than you mirroring that, find out whatever it is that's causing that emotional reaction. Also be service oriented. I don't really have to explain that. Do something for others and not necessarily trying to get something back from it. Also, political awareness. Not going to talk about that. And being able to identify with others. The last one is motivation. Often we talk about motivation as trying to motivate your audience. But how do you motivate yourself? Remind yourself why you want to do something. Why am I standing here speaking to you? Personally, in your personal life, or even in your professional life, remind yourself why you want to do something. That's self-motivation. I like to say, a lot of us developed, what can I call it? The COVID-19 weight, COVID-10. Well, I need to go on a diet. So I have to remind myself, especially when I see that coffee cake in front of me, why am I going on this diet? So that's in my personal life. In my professional life, why do I want to be a public speaker? Break down your work into smaller chunks so that you're not overwhelmed. Make activities that you're doing fun. Give yourself a reward when you do something and you succeeded. Give yourself occasional breaks to avoid burnout. Go outside, listen to the birds, look at the grass, read a book, get a massage, learn to give yourself a break, and tell yourself that you can accomplish anything. Whatever you perceive, you can achieve. That is my motto. Now, when you're speaking, a lot of us have that imposter syndrome. Oh, they're not going to want to hear me. Or if you're a professional speaker, oh, I'm not going to charge them that much. That's the imposter syndrome, meaning that you don't think that you're worth it. But you know what? You are worth it. Also, you need to be special or the best at whatever it is you do. Whatever genre of speaking, be special, be the best. Have the characteristics of Superman or Superwoman. Don't fear failure. There is no such thing. It's only opportunities. And don't deny your ability to discount praise. If someone says, oh, you know what, that was a great speech, say thank you. Don't say, oh, well, you know, I could have done better. Say thank you. Glory in it. Don't feel fear and guilt about your success. And a lot of us, oh, you know, I feel so guilty. Oh my God. No, do not feel that way. Another way, as far as motivating, before you go on to do your presentation, do that positive self-talk. Strike a power pose. Ladies, if you have to go to the washroom, go to the washroom. stand in front of that mirror and do that superwoman pose. I'm powerful. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to slay this. I'm going to be the best ever. I'm going to have standing ovations. And another way of motivating yourself really is to take a brisk walk back and forth, back and forth. That kind of relaxes you. So think about this. I won't give up. I don't care what's going to happen. I don't care how I'm feeling. My public speaking journey has been a lot of bumps in the road, but I am not going to give up. And why am I not going to give up? Because I want to help others. I want to help others on whatever journey they're on. If they want to be an author and I am an author, I want to help them become an author. I want to help them to become a better public speaker. Whatever their journey is, and you are standing in the front of them doing a presentation, you're doing it because you want to help others. And thinking about service or nonprofit, you can be the voice of a particular nonprofit. You can be the voice of a movement. Accept and believe the compliments. I said that before. And remember, your presentation doesn't have to be perfect. Someone told me quite some time ago when I first started out and I was doing presentations for Chicago Public Schools. They said, if you make a mistake, don't apologize, because 9 times out of 10, the audience doesn't know that you are making a mistake. You want the audience to know and believe that you are the expert, because that's the way they perceive you, because you're in front of them. Plus the fact you're speaking to them because you know more about the topic than they do. So what is the bottom line? I know that I have a fellow Toastmaster on here from MJM Speakers Circle. Social and emotional intelligence really works. It can help you deepen your connection with others. It can elevate your speaking career success, and it will help you to reach your full potential as a speaker. And when you finish that presentation, this is what we all want to hear. All righty now. There are a couple of resources. If you want to take an emotional intelligence test, and they're free, you can go to globalleadershipfoundation.com, or you can go to mindtools.com. And they have free tests where you can find out where you are as far as emotional intelligence is concerned. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. It has been a pleasure speaking with you on emotional intelligence.
Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate your time today. We do have a little bit of time for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions related to the presentation today, now is a great time to make use of the knowledge that Dr. Janice Fortman has around emotional intelligence and public speaking. So if you have a question, be sure to put it in the chat, because now is the opportunity to do that. Now, I do have one question since I have the mic currently. I have one question about developing those skills, those people skills. You said to ask better questions. Can you give an example of asking better questions to expand your knowledge or expand your self-awareness and your people?
Don't ask yes or no questions. Always ask a question where the person really has to respond with something other than a yes or a no, especially if you are trying to get to know a person. You can ask a question such as, why did you become a public speaker? Or why did you decide to join Toastmasters? Rather than, well, how do you like being a Toastmaster? So how do you like being a Toastmaster? That's a yes or a no. But why did you become a Toastmaster? Why questions are really good as far as listening and communicating with someone.
All right. So we've got questions coming in through the chat.
You're right, Claire.
I will help moderate the questions in the chat. And so Lori asks, when we're shy and we have flaws within ourselves, what are some techniques that we can overcome our shyness and fears?
A good way to do that is, number one, to practice, but practice in front of your friends, because you are more comfortable, you're more calm, and you know how your friends are. They're going to tell you the good points, the bad points, and they can really prepare you to get out in front of other people. I do that all the time. I practice my presentations in front of my friends.
That is great. Yeah, you can always count on your friends for a true opinion. All right, we've got another question here from Pam. How do you address issues of physical manifestations in terms of not being able to breathe when talking because the fear is so great or extremely shaky?
A good way to do that is, at least, I would say, 5 minutes before your presentation, take deep breaths and close your eyes and just breathe. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. This is a very good way of calming yourself down. Drink some water. As I said earlier, go in the restroom. Stand there, look at yourself in the mirror. Strike that power pose and keep self-talking. I'm going to do great, and breathe. That really helps to calm you down.
Thank you. We've got a question here from Deborah. How do you calm yourself down while you're in the middle of doing your speech?
Stop talking. Pause. Take a breath. Stop talking. A lot of times when we are speaking and we're nervous, we'll just chatter on. Stop talking. Pause. Take a breath.
Any other questions out there? Oh, we've got one from Claire. How do you handle forgetting your place in your speech?
First of all, Claire, thank you for that comment earlier. Never memorize a speech. Never. Because if you memorize a speech and you get nervous, more than likely, you're going to forget. Also remember, no one knows your speech but you. Remember table topics when you have to speak off the top of your head. You're giving a presentation or a speech, you've forgotten exactly what you wanted to say. Go ahead And you can say something that relates to your speech. Never say, oh, I forgot. Because the thing is, if you keep kind of talking to something that's related to your speech, what you forgot is going to come back to you. And I know a lot of times we want to speak chronologically. This is first, this is second, this is third. And always go back because your audience doesn't know what's first, second, or third. They just know if you've told them what you're going to tell them, they know your content. So your content, just keep that in mind. You can always go back. I've done it several times.
Any other questions out there from the audience? Great question so far.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm
Sarah?
saying to Jan, you did a fantastic job. I enjoyed learning more about emotional intelligence, but I noticed you avoided the political question. And because of an incident that happened in my family this week, I think this is a good time and opportunity to use emotional intelligence and ask why you're in a certain political party. And if the things that you are doing in that political party is helping to forward the positiveness of the nation. And again, to evaluate whether or not you're just in that party because it's a family tradition.
You know, that's a very good insight, Sarah. And I avoided it because even though I'm talking about emotional intelligence, if you are really steeped in, let's say, your particular political arena, you usually have deep emotions about that. So I'm going to say this. Let's say you are far right and you are far left. And more than likely, you have a lot of emotions around your political beliefs. It's hard. Now that takes practice. It would be hard to talk to someone trying to sway them, but you can ask them, why do you believe this? The thing is, everybody has a right to believe whatever it is they want to believe. The situation is not to become so emotionally involved that you don't accept the fact that that is their belief. They will say over the dinner table, never discuss politics and religion because it calls for a lot of emotion. Now, that's a good way to really practice emotional intelligence as far as being self-aware, self-regulation, definitely. So it's a good question, Sarah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We've got time for just one last question that came in through the chat. So we will end with Lori's question, which is, what is your technique for speech writing?
I don't write it chronologically. I think of content and I just write whatever comes into my mind. So I don't, like, this is the beginning, the middle, or the end. I just write what comes in here. Once I do that, then I go back and I write it. This is going to be the beginning of my speech. I never write the title first because I think the title comes from your content. Brainstorm. If you're going to motivate if you have a particular theme, brainstorm. Just write. Then come back to it. Put it in the words you actually want to put it in. If you have a chronological order you want it to be in, put it back, and then from your content, write your title.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for all of the questions from the audience members and for the fantastic answers from Dr. Janice. I will turn it back over to Courtney.
Thank you so much, Madam Zoom Master, and thank you so much for all of the community that we had today that had this discussion and asked questions of our expert here today. Dr. Janice Fortman, I am so happy to say that we had an excellent session. Thank you so much for leading it. And as a result, I'm going to share my screen here and present you with a certificate of appreciation. Thank you so much for your presentation today, especially about overcoming the fear of public speaking and getting us to examine ourselves within self-awareness and other areas that relate to public speaking. So thank you so much. We truly appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Now, and of course, this certificate of appreciation is coming our way as well, so you should have access to it soon. Now, everyone, if you have the opportunity, I want to encourage you to go to the District 103 Toastmasters website to fill out the evaluation form there. All of the speeches, all of the presentations.
Yes, I do.
all of the
708
have heard today.
606
Sorry,
8169.
we're gonna go ahead and mute if you can. Thank you so much. So if you have heard any presentations today, any special, anything that you heard today that you thought was excellent, please go to the District 103 Toastmasters website and fill out the evaluation so we can have more, we can hear more from Dr. Janice Fortman. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to go ahead and go back into the main room, you can just click that leave room button at the bottom of the screen.